enlightens my darkened eyes, and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him is that bread emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The very scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and model master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your fame be spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet to the power of God.
Digging through the archives, hoping to get the pictures that actually suit you.
Oh, we can talk about that, yeah.
We usually sing Shri Krishna Chaitanya.
Do you?
On Sunday, but we can also sing Janananda.
Let's see.
Do you have your own contest?
Do they? No, they don't mind. Street Haryans.
There's loud.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Toma vina ke doyalo jagat sangsare.
Toma vina ke doyalo jagat sangsare.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Doya Karo Mohe.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo
Toma vina ke doyalo jagat sangsare. Patita pavana hetu Tava Avatara Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Tava Mosama Patita Prabhu Napaibe Ara Samo Patita Prabhu Na Pai Ha ha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi
Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi
Ha ha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Premananda Sukhi Vipabala Kana Kororo Ami Boro Dukhi Kana Koro Ami Boro Dukhi Kripabala Kana Koro Ami Boro Dukhi Doya Kora Sitapati Advaita Gosai Doya Koro Sitapati Advaita Gosai Sitapati Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai Ha ha Prabhu Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha Vata Yuga Shijivaha Prabhu Lokanatha Daya Kara Siyacharya Prabhu Srinivasa Daya Kara Sri Acharya Prabhu Srinivasa. Ramachandra Ayomage Narottamodasa. Ramachandra Sangamage Narottamodasa. Ramachandra Sangamage Narottamodasa. Ramachandra Narottamodasa. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai. What is Gaurnitai's name? Gaurnitai? Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Grand. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Sanyavari Paschachade Shatarine Jai Srila Prabhupada. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Do we need a translation into German or any other language? Maybe you have to ask in German because they won't understand what I'm asking otherwise. If they need a translation, that is. Everyone's okay? Okay.
And we have 18 on the board.
18 on the board.
We read 17.
Pardon?
We read 17.
And 18.
And 18 is on the board.
Wonderful. Okay, very nice. So we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 22, Madhya Lila rather, chapter 22. And this is text number 17. The title of the chapter is The Process of Devotional Service. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
I'll just read text 17, then we'll go on to 18. Krishna Bhakti Haya Abhideya Pradhana Bhakti Mukha Nirikshaka Karma Yoga Jnana. Devotional service to Krishna is the chief function of the living entity. There are different methods for the liberation of the conditioned soul. Karma, Jnana, Yoga and Bhakti, but all are dependent on Bhakti. And I believe 18 is, do we read more verses or we just stick to that? Is it like Srimad Bhagavatam? Or some places they read and mostly reading, and some places they just, there's no fixed rule. Okay. Text 18, please repeat. Esava Sadanera Ati Tucca Bala Krishna Bhakti Vina Taha Tite Nare Phala E sabha sadhanera atitucha bala. Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala.
Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala.
E sabha sadhanera atitucha bala.
E sabha sadhanera atitucha bala.
Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala.
Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala.
E sabha sadhanera atitucha bala.
E sabha sadhanera atitucha bala.
Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala.
Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala.
E sabha sadhanera atitucha bala.
E sabha sadhanera atitucha bala.
Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala.
Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala.
E sabha sadhanera atitucha bala.
Etana sadhanera atitucha bala.
Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala.
Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala. Ladies, Matajis, Vaishnavis, what else can I say? Matajis. He sabha sadhanera atitucha bala. He sabha sadhanera ditte nare phala. Krishna Bhakti. He sabha sadhanera atitucha bala. Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala.
Krishna bhakti vinataha ditte nare phala.
He sabha. All these sadhanera of methods of spiritual activity. Ati, very, tucha, insignificant. Tucha. Bala, strength. Krishna bhakti, devotional service to Lord Krishna. Vina, without. Taha, all of these. Ditte, to deliver. Nare, are not able. Phala, the desired result. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Without devotional service, all other methods for spiritual self-realization are weak and insignificant. Unless one comes to the devotional service of Lord Krishna, Jnana and Yoga cannot give the desired results. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the Vedic scriptures, stress is sometimes given to fruitive activity, speculative knowledge, and the mystic yoga system. Although people are inclined to practice these processes, they cannot attain the desired results without being touched by Krishna Bhakti, devotional service. In other words, the real desired result is to invoke dormant love of Godhead. or love for Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam states 1, 2, 6. Sarvai pungsang paro dharmo
Savai pungsang paro dharmo
yato bhaktiradhokshaje
yato bhaktiradhokshaje
oi tuki apati hata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation, Dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Karma, jnana and yoga cannot actually awaken love of Godhead. One has to take to the Lord's devotional service. And the more one is inclined to devotional service, the more he loses interest in other so-called achievements. Dhruva Maharaj went to practice mystic yoga, to see the Lord personally, face to face. But when he developed an interest in devotional service, he saw that he was not being benefited by karma, jnana and yoga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this is the section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is quite extensively describing the process of devotional service to Srila Janananda Goswami. And there's some very, you can say here, many significant verses emphasizing the essence of perfection, how to achieve perfection in this human form of life. And a special emphasis, because this chapter is the process of devotional service, particularly on the execution of devotional service, and what that means, and its qualities, etc. And here we find, in this particular section of this chapter, the completeness of pure devotional service. That it doesn't depend on any other process. It's unique. Whereas other processes depend on certain situations. Ultimately, to attain perfection, as this verse and purport, Srila Prabhupada clarifies that without a touch of bhakti yoga, they cannot also achieve even their own perfection. What to speak of the absolute perfection? The absolute perfection is attained, as Krishna himself explains in Bhagavad Gita. He has described, to different extent, the process of karma yoga, the process of jnana yoga, and other different processes, even the process of Ashtanga yoga, which most people consider to be yoga. Different, in the 6th chapter, different breath control and the control of the senses and the body and so on are described at some length, all of which, even there and then, Arjuna, even though he was powerful Kshatriya, he rejected this process. Ultimately, Arjuna, although in the beginning we could say he was presenting a situation of objection towards, well, apparently ignorant of devotional service, presenting more of a case of karma yoga, or let's say karma rather than karma yoga even, But karma, the proper behavior in society, and there are references to this in order to elevate, but they don't, just like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was discussing with Ramananda Roy how to attain this perfection in the human form of life, and how Ramananda Roy was excuse me, describing various stages, all recommended by even Arjuna was quoting Shastra in his arguments not to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. Ramananda Roy, who of course Arjuna is an expansion of Ramananda Roy, so a similar thread can be seen, and Ramananda Roy is describing Varna Ashram, and he's describing Karma Yoga, Karma Yoga, Karma Mishra Bhakti, Jnana Mishra Bhakti, Jnana Mishra Bhakti, and different stages, which, as Prabhupada says, may be attractive to people for various, because they're connected directly, you could say, to the stage of elevation from matter to spirit. So naturally people are somewhat inclined to activities which appear to be connected clearly to their material conditioning. Devotional service is a matter of using our conditioning in the service of Krishna. It's not so much emphasizing or developing, displaying our material condition. It may come automatically, but that's not the objective. Jnana Yoga is kind of, in a sense, a display of one's knowledge. Karma Yoga, one's piety and what have you. Yoga itself is obvious that people are attracted by mystic displays or even physical exercises and so on. It's external. Lord Chaitanya rejected all these processes as external. They're not pure. They're not purely spiritual. They're all in relationship with conditional life. So what is the difference with devotional service that here is being emphasized above and beyond all these other processes, which are, when properly performed, stages? Lord Chaitanya didn't reject them entirely, but he wasn't looking for that particular, say, goal or a particular level of understanding, but rather the highest. And when Ramananda Roy finally came to the prayer of Lord Brahma, Gane Prayas Mudra Pastan Mante Eva, and so on, that one doesn't have to change one's position in the social order or varnashram, whatever it may be. One doesn't have to change that situation. Rather, one in that situation embraces hearing and chanting from great souls. One hears the transcendental message. This is the essential, a pivotal change that takes place, just like we see in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Divya Gyan, how the Lord describes, it's called transcendental knowledge, but much of the chapter seems to be focused on different methods that individual practitioners employ to try to release themselves from the bondage of this material world. But that's not the goal of bhakti, of devotional service. That's a secondary feature. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Dhokshite Jnanayatyasu Vairagyam. What's the last line? Vairagyam. Anyway, slipped my mind. So that devotional service is not dependent on Gyan or Vairagya. No, they will come automatically in the practice of devotional service. But they can, in some cases, be a prelude, a practice which may help the living entity to move in the spiritual path towards perfection. But unfortunately, most people's awareness of perfection or desire, goal, is not complete. Another verse in this section, Vedanti tatvidas tatvigyan madvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shamkite. Learned transcendentalists know the absolute truth in 3 features, not just 1, but 3. Devotees also know it in 3. although they may naturally be absorbed in one of the three. It does include the others. But many only understand the Brahman feature of the Lord, or they only have that objective to attain that spiritual merging into the oneness, or just the understanding that God is great and we are his more or less insignificant part and parcels being guided by him. We have to worship him and so on and so forth, which at best will lead to reverential devotional service in the mood of Vaikuntha. But that's not the objective goal, or the goal of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Janananda Goswami. Having heard from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the goal is higher. The goal is to attain Krishna Bhakti. Krishna Bhakti, pure devotional service to Krishna. Devoid anyabhilasita shunyam jnana kamajinavatam anukulyena krishnana. This is the process of devotional service, to cultivate this mood of those who are pure, freed of the influences of gyan, karma, gyan, and any other process come to that. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharmam Parachakya Mamikam Sharanam Braja. Give up all these other processes. Surrender unto me. Having explained many of these processes himself in the Bhagavad Gita, for those who are on the progressive path, or happen to be inclined, the ultimate purpose of those, however, is to surrender to Krishna. And as we were mentioning in the 4th chapter of Gita, even though there are many different processes recommended in different sectors of the Vedas for people at different stages, they're not to be denied, but they're not the goal. Just like in our education system, the goal of the education system is not just to learn that 2 and 2 equals 4. It is not to be condemned. It is not to be belittled. It is certainly foundational. It has its absolute necessity, but that's not the goal. That's just a stage of mathematical education. The goal, maybe, I don't know what the goal is, some higher goal anyway, materially speaking. The practice of everything is more or less like that. We get stuck sometimes at a different stage and go no further. So many persons get stuck for various reasons at different stages of the yoga ladder, as it's sometimes called. Well, Prabhupada explains in that chapter, the 4th chapter, that if one does simply get stuck at a particular stage of performing austerities or breath control or various kinds of yogic postures or even the study of Shastra, etc., performance of brahmacharya life and various kinds of ways of controlling the senses, it remains simply a materialistic activity. It's still within the realm of the modes of nature, be it in the mode of goodness or what. But it's still within the modes of nature. Unless one's practice lead to transcendence, unless they lead to, which means they have to be touched with devotional service, then an ultimately pure devotional service. Otherwise, as they surrender to me, Krishna says, I reward them accordingly. So you get the result of your endeavor, because Krishna is in the heart, guiding everyone's wanderings, fulfilling the desires of the living entities. But he also has this desire to have loving exchanges. Generally, we see this in the living entity, that the desire for loving exchange is very strong. And when that is frustrated, then one may reject the idea of having an object to experience loving exchanges. Out of disappointment, frustration, one may turn to impersonalism or some other method. But that's not the objective goal of yoga. The ultimate goal of yoga, the highest form of yoginam api sarvisham makatena taratmana, is to attain loving devotional service to Krishna. That's the highest. Not just to get stuck on a certain platform of whatever, practice, etc. And this is invoked. And the essential ingredient here is not... The desire may be swelling in the heart for past or present reasons. But without the association, the transformation takes place. The transformative verse, in a sense, in the 4th chapter, which Krishna explains, in of itself you could say it's not necessarily transcendental knowledge, but it's the transformative statement which awakens transcendental knowledge, and not just knowledge pertaining to this world, which elevates one to a liberated condition, or knowledge of the liberated stage, but the actual knowledge which this verse is referring to is the constitutional nature of the soul. That can only be understood and practically realized in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. So Krishna says, Tadvidi pratipatena pariprashnena sevya upidikshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. Just to try to learn this truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively. Render service. Because the self-realized soul has seen the truth, he can impart that knowledge unto us. This is the key verse, practically, because in that association one hears Satam Pasangam Mama Virya Samvido Bhavanti Vitkarna Rasayana Kadam. One hears the nectarian topics, which are the actual medicinal process to cleanse us of all other ideas, all other motivations, or one loses all interest in other processes when one gets that chance to associate by hearing from a pure devotee of the Lord. This is the key process. Rendering service, hearing from pure devotees of the Lord. Their association. This is, in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, which Prabhupada mentions here in this purport, there's an example of somebody who did engage the process here of Jnana Yoga to try to see God, or in his case he didn't know who God was, but just the principle of a supreme being who, is their objective to fulfill their material desire. In his case, he approached with a material desire. One of the 4 ways in Bhagavad Gita which Krishna mentions one can approach him. That's not pure devotional service, it's mixed at most, karma, desiring a material return. But by the mercy of Narada Muni, he got the association of Narada Muni, who engaged him in devotional service by chanting the name Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He gave him a process whereby to chant that he will attain his ultimate goal. And he took it seriously, even though he had no knowledge of what the real goal was. But he practiced that very seriously, even a young boy. And consequently, because of the grace of Narada Muni, Krishna was pleased with him and eventually gave him his darshan, although he was not qualified to receive it in one sense. But by the association of Narada and by having firm faith in Narada's instructions, he got the mercy of Krishna. And when he had that mercy, when he had that darshan of the Lord, and somebody, maybe Christian, you know the verse, famous verse in the Hari Bhakti Sutta, it's quoted somewhere else in some scripture also, where Dhruva Maharaj says, I approached you looking for broken pieces of glass. In other words, he's comparing the desire for material wealth, power. He wanted a kingdom greater than his father, greater than his grandfather, his great-grandfather, the greatest kingdom of all. He was so passionate. But he lost interest. When he had, by the practice of devotional service, his heart was becoming cleansed. Eventually, he became, you can say, attracted the mercy of the Lord. The Lord appeared, and he lost all interest in his original purpose to attain a particular material result by approaching a God whom he didn't even know who he was. But and he lost all interest in that completely. He just wanted to, he just condemned himself basically for such a foolish wish. All he wanted now was the opportunity to render service and to associate with the devotees of the Lord. This is the fruit, the follow. Krishna Bhakti, the result of Krishna Bhakti, the secondary result is that one loses all interest in these other activities. Although they may be attractive from the material perspective. Here we're in Zurich, people are attracted to Switzerland for various reasons. Zurich is famous for mainly, I think, for clocks, watches, is that right? Watches and money. Everyone thinks of Zurich, you a Swiss bank account. Huh? And watches and clocks is, I don't know if Zurich or Bern or wherever it is, but Switzerland is famous for this, Rolex watch or something like that. And yeah, people come here, and the mountains, the Alps, but these are all insignificant desires. Compared to pure devotional service, there are many examples. How persons who may have approached the devotees, many examples are there. Even in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, different examples of personalities who got Mahaprabhu's mercy, although they approached for other reasons, maybe to steal his jewelry, or whatever it may be. Or Krishna, same thing, to steal his jewelry. Lord Nityananda, steal his jewels, different dacoits. But they eventually ended up pure devotees by the mercy of the Guru, the mercy of Nityananda. So by that mercy, then, we can it sounds different, doesn't it? Well, Krishna's name is Hari, that when he's especially merciful to his aspiring devotee, he takes away all these desires. It sounds cruel. Most people think that's horrible. You know, what type of God is this? He takes all these things away. We want a God who gives us more. More money, more enjoyment, longer life, you know, win the war, whatever it may be. That's the type of God we want. You know, a God who takes it all away. I'll be a pauper. I'll be devoid. I'll have nothing left. But it's actually only when one comes to that situation where we realize we don't really have anything. Our business is not to try to enjoy this world and see ourselves in the center. Our business is totally different to that. Our constitutional position, our spiritual nature is not like that at all. Our nature is simply to exist for the pleasure of Krishna, as we were hearing last night. That's where real satisfaction lies. And any mother, sincere mother with her child, can appreciate that she dedicates her life and soul to the child. And that's a pleasure which is incomparable to the other types of pleasures one may get as a mother, or as a woman, especially without a child. But any other pleasures you get in life, the pleasure of serving one's child is far greater. It's so pleasing to the mother. Others may not be able to appreciate the extent, but it's very pleasing to the mother. It's a relative example, but it gives some indication of the nature of pure devotional service. It's not just selfless in terms of the other aspect of it is the Krishna Bhakti alone awakens our love. The practice of Krishna Bhakti, of course, it means loving devotion to Krishna in essence, but the practice, the stages in the association of a pure devotee of the Lord, when we follow the process, gradually awaken our attraction to Krishna and a consequent awakening of a relationship with Krishna, not just one of reverence that he's God or we're his servant. That's preliminary stage of acceptance and understanding. But the stage of actually having a loving relationship with Krishna, that's not something that can be forced. The jnana is they may want to see God, yogis see the super soul, see them enter into Brahman. They have their goals, personal goals. But when one has no other personal goal except for to serve the Lord, then the Lord reveals himself as they surrender unto me. He reveals himself. So this process of pure devotional service, and as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, Tushanti Charamanti Cha, is joyfully, everlasting and joyfully performed. It's not something which is like, some of the yogic exercises can be quite austere. Gyan can be quite austere. Study, analyze. It's like a scientific approach, this process of trying to understand the truth. It's Anuman or whatever it's called. It's not necessarily, there may be some feeling of content, satisfaction, but it's not anything compared with loving relationship with Krishna, the reciprocation which comes therein. And even entering into the Brahman, if they eventually attain that state, is considered to be like not even a drop of water in a tiny little canal compared to the ocean of devotional service. The pleasure therein obtained. Yes, it may free one, Kleshagni, from the reactions of this material world, but it doesn't awaken unending, unlimited, loving reciprocation with the Lord. Krishna Bhakti. So Krishna Bhakti descends in this world through the pure devotees of the Lord, and by their grace we're able to associate with Krishna Bhakti. And thus, by association, Krishna Bhakti may awaken in our hearts, and one will lose all interest in any other path if one at all practices only to sort of serve the ultimate principle, sometimes to keep good health, to preach sometimes, to inspire others who are on those paths, like we see sometimes great devotees like even King Prithu perform karma kanda, yajnas and various activities to show people who are addicted to these things how to do it in a way that they would come to devotional service and not just get stuck in that circle of karma. So anyway, Lord Chaitanya is teaching all these things about the preeminent situation of devotional service, which alone, Krishna says, Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tatvada. By devotional service alone can I be understood, not by any other means. Both in the 11th chapter and the 18th chapter, Krishna emphasizes it directly. If you want to see me, not by any other means other than pure devotional service, because Krishna alone reveals himself. He's not an object that you can forcibly see by certain methodology through a telescope or whatever it may be. He's not like that. You can't develop. The process of seeing is simply the Lord's will. And his will is attracted by pure devotional service. These chapters are very important to cultivate this mood, this consciousness of pure devotion. So I'm going to finish there. I have another class coming up at 9 o'clock. If there are any questions, please feel free. I saw all kinds of vegetables sitting in the room there. What happened to them? Are they pardon?
We'll do it after the breakfast. We'll cut.
Okay, you have a united endeavor to cut the vegetables after breakfast, is it?
Yeah, usually we do it during class, but today we got.
Oh, I missed the fun. So nice to see devotees engage in service, but Srila Prabhupada did on occasions say, no, just here, don't do anything else during class. He said that on occasions. He said that even, I distinctly remember one time in the manor during a darshan, there Prabhupada sitting there, and it was the mother of the temple president, if I'm not mistaken, the mother of one of the devotees, I think it was the mother of the temple president was there, and Vajrahari's mother, I think, but it may have been another one. But it was definitely the mother of somebody. She was knitting some woolen thing, maybe a jumper for her son, or even for Prabhupada or something. It may have been for Prabhupada more likely. And Prabhupada said, no, stop. Try to hear, try to hear. But we know, in many cases, the devotees fall asleep during class. Have you ever seen that happen? Maybe not, because you're always asleep. You don't see what's going on. So it used to be, if it still is, devotees get more sleep now than we used to. I mean, if you got 6 hours sleep in a day, that was like a kind of, well, we wouldn't look at it like that, but it would have been very extraordinary, exceptional. So it wasn't unusual devotees would get 3-4 hours sleep, and it wasn't unusual they fall asleep during japa, class, kirtan, prasadam, everything. I many times fell asleep during prasadam. You can't imagine that now, huh? Yeah, we weren't transcendental, but we were determined and enthusiastic, and sometimes we just didn't get sleep. You had to stay up late washing the pots, and there's no question of sleeping during the day. Not like last night. I took rest at 12:30, so I didn't convince myself that wasn't even required. I didn't wake up till 6:30. That would have been enough to tell you to pack your bags in those days. You can sleep in the park next door. Where were you? I met one time Prabhupada in the manor also, and it was the same devotee, temple present. Didn't come to Mangal Arati. Prabhupada something happened, and Prabhupada wanted to see the present during the japa period, and he asked his secretary, his servant, call the temple president. And he went looking, and he said, Prabhupada, temple president's resting. So I said, what? Call him here right now. So he went to his room. Prabhupada wants to see you right now. If anything would get you up, that would get you up. And he came. So he didn't even talk about the subject, at least initially. He said, where were you? Why you were not at Mangal Arati? Prabhupada was tired. No. Why were you not at Mangal Arati? Well, I got back at 2:30 this morning, Prabhupada. Why were you not at Mangal Arati? He didn't let him off. He had, took rest about 2:30 in the morning. It didn't make no difference to Prabhupada. I remember one time in 72, that would have been, Prabhupada went to a program in Reading, a city near London, and it was an Indian family had arranged a program. So after the program, which finished about 10 o'clock, the family said, Swamiji, will you please come to our house and bless her, bless us, bless our house. They'd organised the program. The devotees were saying, oh my goodness, it's an hour to get back to London, and now we got to, Prabhupada, it's getting late, no, we have to go. But Prabhupada had another idea. He went back to the house, and then the man said, would you please take a little tiny prasadam in our house? And I was, oh no, here we go. I stayed back at the temple. I wasn't there, but I saw what happened, or heard what happened the next day. A few of us had to stay back. And Prabhupada said, yeah, he agreed, but it wasn't a little snack, it was like a 10-course feast. The devotees were like, oh no, it's like 10:30 at night or something, a 10-course feast sitting in front of you. Prabhupada is honouring prasadam as if it's lunchtime and telling everyone else to do so. And everyone's like, ugh. They get back about 11:30 or something, 12 o'clock back to the temple, 12 o'clock or something back at the temple. And naturally there was hardly anyone at Mangal Arati, but Prabhupada was up at like 3 o'clock, translating. And then ding, 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 where is everybody? Why is there no one at Mangal Arati? Yeah. Anyway, we're not saying you should do like that, but some austerity has to be there. We're not here just as for a comfort zone. We're here to let go of our attachments a little bit and embrace the process of devotional service. Hare Krishna, any questions? So this jnana and vairagya are also there, but they're part of they serve devotional service, little austerity, renunciation, study of the shastras, remembering verses, and so on and so forth. This is also there. Knowledge in relationship with Krishna. Yes, Prabhu. No, Prabhu. Yes. What is your name again?
Mike.
Mike. You got the mic.
I got the mic.
You got the mic, okay.
Switch on the mic.
But yeah, mic, okay. Turn on.
Now
Wake
it's
up.
on. Okay, yeah, Mike. Yeah, you mentioned that there are 4 types of people who seek Krishna.
Or approach him.
Yeah, approach.
Yeah.
And then it says that the most dearest one is the one who seeks knowledge. So how does it align with the other statement that the most dear is the one that has bhakti?
Yeah, bahunam jamanante jnanam bhajate. After their approach in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, you can bring a Bhagavad Gita quickly. We have enough time to just quickly look at that, I think. You may have to start getting ready up there. Huh? You need the key, yeah? Okay. Where's my glasses? Here they are. Couldn't see them because I was holding them. And the key. There we go. So get the thing set up. We have a Zoom class every Sunday morning, usually at 8, but sometimes 9, so today it's 9. And, yeah. Bring a Bhagavad Gita, quick. You haven't got one. Well, that's nothing wrong with that, but surely there's an English Gita somewhere. He's always bringing one, okay. So we just read it for you, so you get it from the horse's mouth. In English, you heard that term? Hear it from the horse's mouth. Have you ever heard? Hey, you're here. What are you doing here? You're doing a fire display? 2 years you've been in Zurich? Really? Amazing. Thanks, Bob. Wow. We want you to come to France, okay? Come and do a display there. Okay. 4 kinds of persons who approach Krishna. Is that chapter 7? 7, is it? In 7? Out of many thousands amongst men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. There's one verse to remember in this chapter. What verse number is it? 16. 16. Here we go. They've already described those who generally don't surrender unto him. In fact, they definitely don't want to surrender. And we may know what they are. We may be feeling we're one of them. And Hobesta among the Bharats. 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me. The distressed, the desirer, this is the beginning of devotional service. Distressed people, they often approach God. I'm in distress, help. Even atheists sometimes resort to this. God, help us. The desire of wealth, like Dhruva Maharaj. The inquisitive. Who are the inquisitive? Who are the inquisitive? Who are the example of the inquisitive who approach God? Any example? Kumaras are sometimes cited, I think. Inquisitive. And those who are searching for knowledge. Who would be one who's searching for knowledge? Long time I haven't read this. Can you remember anyone? I don't think it's mentioned in this purport. But anyway, these 4 types of persons are mentioned here. Of these, the one who is in full knowledge, not just inquiring about knowledge, but coming to the perfection of that. They're not asking for anything in return, They're not trying to get release from suffering. They're not simply inquiring. They're seriously on the path. They want bahunam jamanam and te gyanavam prapadyate. After many births they may come to me and surrender to me. It may take some time, but they're on the path. And because they're devoid of any other desire, and when of these, the one who is in full knowledge, not partial knowledge either, full knowledge of Krishna and his, as we heard earlier on, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaneti Shabjade, knows Krishna in full, and who is always engaged, Mamchiyo Vyabhichara Bhakti Yogena Sevati, always engaged in devotional service, is the best. It makes sense, doesn't it? So they're the best, for I am very dear to him and he is dear to me, because they're fully engaged. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me I consider to be just like my own self. People who approach, generally speaking, they can also, of course, come to this platform, but in of itself, they're approaching for a material reason. And that is also pious, they're magnanimous, but they're not in the same platform when it was realized, has realized knowledge of the Supreme. They consider just like my own, being engaged in my transcendental service, because they've come to this understanding. And the next verse says the same thing, which we just quoted actually. Bahunam jamanante gyanavan mapapajite. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me. Knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So he's the really great one who's on that path of surrender. It is not that the devotees who are less complete in knowledge are not dear to the Lord. The Lord says that all are magnanimous, because anyone who comes to the Lord for any purpose is called a Mahatma, or a great soul. The devotees who want some benefit out of devotional service are accepted by the Lord, because there is an exchange of affection. But it's not so selfless, it's not so, say, for the pleasure of Krishna. There's still an element of my own. Out of affection they ask the Lord for some material benefit. They have faith in God, they know that he's the provider and so on. And when they get it, they become so satisfied that they also advance in devotional service. Thank you, Krishna, how can I serve you? But the devotee is in full knowledge is considered to be very dear to the Lord, because his only purpose is to serve the Supreme Lord with love and affection. Such a devotee cannot live a second without contacting or serving the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is very fond of his devotee and cannot be separated from him. So it's really referring to one who has actually realized this knowledge, not just theoretical, but by practically applying that knowledge, as we see in the 4th chapter, Krishna says, one who applies this knowledge, realizes this knowledge in due course of time. They're applying the knowledge in their life. And thus, after many births, they come to this platform of completely surrendering unto Krishna. So one's on that path of surrendering is most dear to the Lord. Okay, I'm going to have to finish because I've got to go upstairs to get ready for this next program. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, glories to Prabhupada. And Sabyasachi, you've also been here for 2 years, is it? It seems like it.
2 days.
2 days? Just 2 days?
Yes.
Only 2 days? You just came back from Vrindavan?
Yes, sir.
Why you leave Vrindavan at this moment? This is like the time when everyone's coming.
Affection
Affection for what?
for the devotees.
Wow, isn't that wonderful? There are no devotees in Vrindavan? I heard it's super crowded this year, is that right?
Yeah.
I had a letter from one devotee yesterday or the day before, said, so crowded, Maharaj. I can't deal with it right now, we'll have to wait till Kartik finishes. He said, it's packed, sardine can. It's nice to be packed up with devotees, huh? Yeah, nice to see so many devotees here this morning. Bhagavatam class. Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay, we better go. Hare Krishna. So, happy chopping. You're going to be chopping the vegetables? Yes? Everybody? After breakfast. You can eat them first. Make sure that nobody eats them. We had a devotee. There was one devotee, I'd never forget. He was such a sweet soul. But if there wasn't enough breakfast, which sometimes was the case, when there's a lot of devotees coming in the manor, he would go and just grab every raw vegetable he could get. Cauliflower, cabbage. He would go out in the fields if he couldn't get in the boga room and tear them out the ground. He had such a voracious appetite. So we hope there's enough breakfast, otherwise. Hare Krishna. Shri Baba ki jai.
Janananda Goswami Maharaj ki jai.
Who's the fourth one? Gajendra, Dhruva, the Kumaras. Who's the fourth one? Who's the other one? The sages? Such a long time. I never thought of that. They came with us.